Watch this.
The fate of legalized abortion in America and in Idaho now sits with the Supreme Court. The Gem State is already poised to pounce, depending on the decision. A reminder of Idaho's trigger laws. And speaking of triggering,
they are more medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome than women need to be.
To call it controversial would be a bit of an understatement. After a Boise State professor doubles down on dictating what women should be doing, we ask one of his colleagues to give us her perspective. Cheers or tears? November is now gone, and so are those great or awful Movember mustaches, beards, and everything in between. It reminds us of that one time when a local news anchor had their facial hair publicly debated and settled. All right, a major national conversation today centering on abortion laws across the United States. Today, the Supreme Court heard arguments on a Mississippi law that looked to ban almost all abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. That Mississippi law is one of the most significant challenges to the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court case, the case that determined the Constitution provides a right to abortion. A decision isn't expected until next year, so we have to sit tight till next summer. But it creates questions about what would happen in Idaho if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Well, we know how it would go legally. Idaho actually does have trigger laws on the topic on the books. And Joe Paris joins me now to look at those laws. Joe, it's pretty simple, though. What would happen here in Idaho if Roe v. Wade is overturned?
Yeah, and actually lawmakers years ago have actually determined, okay, we know exactly what we want to do if the federal courts decide X, Y, and Z. So yes, Idaho's prepared should Roe v. Wade is ever overturned. During the 2020 legislative session, actually, Brian, lawmakers passed what's known, as you just referred to, as a trigger bill. And it sounds exactly like it's worded there. It means that if and when Roe v. Wade is overturned, the law would automatically then give the state of Idaho the power to make their own decisions on abortion. And in Idaho, that would mean that abortion would be outlawed in almost all cases. And the state of Idaho does have two laws that kick in if the states are given the right to determine specific abortion policy on the state level. Now, the first one I just mentioned passed last year, 2020. It's a simple addition to Idaho law that makes abortion in most cases a crime. It physically puts that in the state statute. It would make it a crime, though, for the doctor to perform an abortion, not a crime for the mother to get one. Now, it's important to note that there are exceptions to Idaho's trigger law. Bill sponsor Representative Megan Blanksma, a Republican in the State House, she explained to us exactly what those exceptions are right after the bill passed.
It outlaws abortion in most cases. But it does provide for an affirmative defense in the case of rape and incest for women, and it doesn't criminalize abortion for pregnant women. Part of the discussion on the floor was talking about choices, and particularly in the case of rape and incest, that choice is taken away from the woman. They don't have a choice. They're forced into a situation that they didn't choose to be in. And so that was why it was particularly important to put those exemptions in.
The law states that if a doctor is caught performing an abortion that is not a case of rape, incest, or medical need, that the doctor would face 2 to 5 years in prison as well, possible suspension of their medical license. The mother, again, would not be prosecuted in the state of Idaho. Now, the state has a second law that would also kick into effect if there's ever any decision to uphold a restriction or ban on an abortion of a preborn child with a heartbeat by any United States appellate court. So basically what's going on right now. Now, that law was signed into law this year back in April after passing the Idaho legislature. About a dozen states have very similar laws, but in Idaho specifically, it would prohibit abortion procedures when a fetal heartbeat can be detected, with the exceptions included for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Now, there is debate about when a fetal heartbeat can be detected, with some believing it can be only weeks into a pregnancy. Now, the 6 weeks marks is really what pro-life advocates are pointing at, and that's what a recent Texas law also defined as well, 6 weeks. But there are also arguments that fetal activity at 6 weeks should not be considered a heartbeat, but rather something as a precursor. Again, though, there are penalties for doctors who would perform an abortion under the law, not for women. So what do abortion numbers look like in the state of Idaho? Here's the latest data from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, and it captures between 2008 and 2019, the most latest data available. During that that time, there was an average of about 1,400 abortions performed every year. And Brian, a large majority of those abortions were on women aged 20 to 29. So a really interesting conversation, I know, that's being held nationwide, but we'll see how it plays out in Idaho once they make their decision.
And we're going to have to wait until at least next summer, though, to find out. And if the decision goes a certain way to ban abortions or to go along with this Mississippi law, it could happen immediately or within 30 days
right
here in Idaho. All right. Thank you, Joe. Well, if you happen to catch any of those arguments this morning at the Supreme Court, you may have heard our newest Solicitor General. That's the person leading a whole team of lawyers who argue before the Supreme Court on behalf of the government. And for the first time in history, that voice belongs to an Idahoan. 41-year-old Elizabeth Prelogger was only appointed to the position in late October, but has already appeared before the court in 10 other arguments. She graduated from Boise High School in 1998 and then graduated from Harvard Law School. And oh, by the way, she even made time to be named Miss Idaho in 2001 and 2004. Oh, and she also clerked for the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and current Associate Justice Elena Kagan. She even served as special counsel on Robert Mueller's investigation of the Russia meddling in the 2016 election. So she's got a pretty impressive resume. Today, she represented the Justice Department, arguing that Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey were correctly decided and rooted in the Constitution.
General, would you specifically tell me, state what the right is? Is it specifically abortion? Is it liberty? Is it autonomy? Is it privacy?
The right is grounded in the liberty component of the 14th Amendment, Justice Thomas, but I think that it promotes interests in autonomy, bodily integrity, liberty, and equality. If this court renounces the liberty interest recognized in Roe and reaffirmed in Casey, it would be an unprecedented contraction of individual rights and a stark departure from principles of stare decisis. The court has never revoked a right that is so fundamental to so many Americans and so central to their ability to participate fully and equally in society. The court should not overrule this central component of women's liberty.
It's pretty impressive, and she had quite the audience today. In the history of the United States, there have been only 45 people ever appointed to the position of Solicitor General, and of those, only 2 have been women. The other, Justice Kagan. Okay, so speaking of women, well, there seems to be a lot of that lately because of what a Boise State political science professor said in a speech last month. Dr. Scott Yenner teaches political philosophy at BSU. He's a tenured professor that's been there since 2000. But in early November, Dr. Yenner was speaking at the National Conservatism Conference as a Washington Fellow at the Claremont Institute's Center for the American Way of Life. That's quite the business card. The Claremont Institute is a conservative think tank that also has members who believe the 2020 presidential election was fraudulent. Anyway, Dr. Yenner gave a 15-minute speech at that conference that he posted to YouTube last week and included things like this.
Our independent women seek their purpose in life in mid-level bureaucratic jobs like human resource management, environmental protection, and marketing. They are more medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome than women need to be. If we want a great nation, we should be preparing young women to become mothers, not finding every reason for young women to delay motherhood until they are established in a career or sufficiently independent. If every Nobel Prize winner is a man, that's not a failure. It's kind of a cause for celebration. More successful men will mean more happy citizenry and a stronger nation.
Yeah, I know. Well, needless to say, it didn't get much attention until that video hit TikTok, and then the university felt compelled to put out this statement. Boise State University understands the open exchange of ideas, which is fundamental to education, can introduce uncomfortable and even offensive ideas. However, the university cannot infringe upon the First Amendment rights of any members of our community, regardless of whether we, as individual leaders, agree or disagree with that message. No single faculty member defines what Boise State or any public university endorses or stands for. So we wanted to hear from another faculty member to dig a little deeper into what defines Boise State. Dr. Joanne Leidy has been the dean of Boise State's College of Engineering since 2017. She graduated in 1982 with a degree in chemical engineering, not from Boise State, another college, but she's also a fellow of the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, and last year received another fellowship from the Association for the Advancement of Science for her research into air quality. Oh, and she's a wife and a mom. She's also aware of what her colleague has said and has this to say in response.
Every effort must be made not to recruit women into engineering, but rather to recruit and demand more of men who become engineers. Ditto for med school and the law and every trade.
So I think everybody at a university has a right to their opinion, and that their opinion is important, and that we learn from each other, and we need to continue to have dialogue. So I think the important aspect of being a university is having that freedom of speech and the ability to express your opinions. In terms of engineering and computer science, those are jobs and workforces that need to be diverse. I think that's important because I feel like engineering is all about solving problems, and that requires a lot of creativity. And creative jobs, as you would know, require a different life experience and different life experiences around the table. And that's why diversity is so important in engineering, that diverse set of thoughts that can really solve problems and the critical problems that we need to solve in the world.
The essence of Dr. Yenner's speech is basically that feminism is a failure, and it's done the opposite. In fact, it's done more harm than it has done good for this country. Do you buy that?
I don't really think about it in that way. In terms of being a woman in a male-dominated field, I think I have a unique set of perspectives to bring to the table. I am married, I have children, and so I have succeeded in a career that is very rewarding, as well as having a family. Okay. So I feel like that feminism and that movement toward bringing women up is not a failure.
Our feminist culture points women, especially young women, away from marriage and family life through its celebration of careerism.
Now, when you got into engineering and decided this is where you wanted to go, did you feel like you were pushed there, or that like this is the only way for you to succeed was to, quote unquote, get into a man's job, a man's world?
I went into engineering because I liked science and math and solving problems. I knew it would be a good career. Engineering is a very solid career. It's well-paying, and those were the decisions that drove me to engineering. I went into academics because I wanted to teach, and I really wanted that perspective of being a good teacher and helping students achieve their goals.
We need to de-emphasize our colleges and universities. That's essential to making progress on family matters. Almost everything in these indoctrination camps complicates the male-female dance. It delays growing up.
That basically promoting going to school, getting an education, is not going to enforce and build this fabric of our nation, as he refers to it. Do you believe that? Do you agree with that?
In my opinion, the things that make the fabric of life are being a role model to our children on what they can accomplish. Part of that is being a team with a partner and really having a career that has been successful. And I would guess that if you talk to my two grown children, they would say me having a successful career has helped them obtain their dream jobs as well. I would be lying if I told you I have never heard this before.
Okay. This isn't new to you.
It's not new. I have been in the profession for a very long time. It has changed dramatically since when I started. There is still work to be done.
And it continues. And there are about 2,200 students in Boise State's College of Engineering. About 18% of them are women, which is below the national average of about 23%, we're told. Dr. Leidy pointed out Boise State's College of Engineering is only 25 years old, and they've grown over that quarter century to be a ranked college of engineering in research and undergraduate studies. In those 25 years, they've had 4 deans, 3 of which have been women. So she credits the college's accomplishments and impact to the commitment of its women leadership. Dr. Leidy was one of 23 of BSU's deans, vice presidents, president, and athletic director that signed a letter of support for women at the school, something they felt they had to do today, noting the significant contributions to all areas of academia, industry, and society. Boise State University has a long tradition of supporting women, they said. We defend the right to seek an education, to pursue a range of academic aspirations, and to make their mark in whatever ways they choose. Dr. Yenner put out a recorded response to the backlash he has received this week, but it's basically doubling down on what he already said in Orlando and what he said in other publications previously, like transgender activists are trying to undermine parental rights, something we talked about back in 2017. Now, we reached out to Dr. Yenner today to get an answer to a few of our questions. He has yet to respond. We also reached out to Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin, since she put Dr. Yenner on her education task force in an effort to root out indoctrination in our schools. What does she, holding the second highest political position in the state, Idaho's first female lieutenant governor, what does she think about being in a mid-level bureaucratic job, as he says, and labeled as more medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome than women need to be? Well, we're still waiting for a response. It's an ageless debate, to shave or not to shave, and to what degree. Apparently, going on air with facial hair has been an issue for longer than we thought. We're digging into the archives and the shaving kit and hearing from viewers over something called email. You know, we still love getting your emails, by the way, but if you want us to see it during the show, your best bet is to connect with us over text. Make sure you save our number, 208-321-5614. You can send us whatever's on your mind, comments, questions, and complaints. Just make sure you include your name in the hashtag, the 208. But be warned, we may share yours at the end of the show, so keep them PG-ish. You may have noticed I ditched the multicolored fuzzy face covering. Product of an October vacation that kind of ran into No Shave November. And based on the texts, emails, Facebook messages, voicemails, you did notice the lack of time spent with a razor. Either like it or you hate it, maybe you don't even care about it. We certainly have seen more facial hair on air over recent years, but to think it's something new, well, it's not. Not even for KTVB. Back in 1997, in the early days of Mark Johnson, you let him know just how much you hated his new goatee.
Well, it has been one of the most talked about developments here at Channel 7 this week. Sports director Mark Johnson's facial hair.
Never has a goatee caused so much controversy. Shave it or keep it. Well, it's Judgment Day, and Idaho Life reporter John Miller went searching for a verdict.
Shave it, keep it, shave it, keep it, shave it, keep it.
It's kind of funny, actually, how people are concerned about whether or not I have facial hair or not.
More than a couple hundred people, in fact.
And I think what's happening is you're seeing a lot of the precincts reporting from the facial hair factions. A lot of guys with facial hair. It's kind of a community. It's kind of a club. It's a fraternity, if you will.
Do you know who this guy is?
No.
Mark Johnson, our sports guy.
Right.
He got this wild idea last weekend that he wanted to grow something that looks like this. And what do you think?
No. No. This is good.
Okay.
This is good.
Get rid of this hooliganism here, huh? We don't want any of that.
He doesn't want to do that.
Or does he? Goats have feelings too. Don't shave it.
Well, and there I think what you've got is the rural community stepping forward, and I think that's important for the farm folks.
We think it stinks, Unky Mark. My daddy grows one better than that in just a few hours.
Well, that's from my nieces.
Dog and dad say keep it, 3 ladies say take it off. Apparently you're tearing apart families with your facial hair.
Yeah, and that's concerning to me a little.
He's grown himself a little Fu Manchu, so if you had to Fu Manchu's between them, what would you tell him to do?
I think the facial hair's nice.
So you think it might work?
Possibly.
Okay.
Need something else. Goatee alone doesn't quite do it.
Okay. What do you want here, Mark?
I want people to be happy. It's basically what I'm looking for. It was fun being part of the whole facial community fraternity, if you will. But I think in the end, what I'm really looking for is some harmony. And of course, that'll all boil down to whatever my wife decides.
John Miller, Idahos News Channel 7.
Well, I guess we know what Chrissy decided.
Well, he's shaving it, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Actually, when I started splitting apart families, I knew that it was time for it to go.
I guess so.
Well, you know, it was pretty divided for a long time.
It
Mark.
was. It was very close. It was very
Yeah.
close. But then it started to get nasty. The people who didn't like it really didn't like it.
Did not like it. Yeah, we heard from you. Okay, huh?
All right, it's going. It's going.
All right.
Oh, they heard from it. Did you see that machine that sent in those messages, the early days of email? Yeah, that was that. And yeah, the wife plays a pretty big part in what happens with this. For example, last week, I made a few adjustments to the beard, shearing it into a hairy handlebar there, as you can see, until the kids asked me how many cats I rescued, because apparently all firemen have that type of mustache. Then I trimmed it even trimmier, as you can see. Straight up walrus looking broom. Not too proud. It's not me. A cookie duster, as a good friend of mine calls it. So, like I said, Mark pointed out as well, the wife, she nixed both of those. So we're back to the baby face, as it were. Speaking of which, we're not going to have much longer to look at Mark's baby face. Well, if that baby was born with 65-year-old skin, that is. Mark is getting ready to sign off the air in just about 3 weeks. After 40 years on air and a total of 30 years here at Channel 7, he is officially retiring coming up at the end of this month, December 23rd. And then he will likely grow a beard longer than Joe Paris's. All right, let's get some of the comments you sent in during today's show. Lots have to do with Dr. Yenner at Boise State, but this one, I've never understood why abortion is a political issue. If it is entirely funded by private money or insurance, it should be up to the woman. Well, Joe, I guess the argument goes into when do you believe life begins. That's kind of where the argument is with that one. Professor Yenner's issuance of grades should undergo a full audit. If his bias against strong, smart, quarrelsome women creates disparate treatment, that is liability taxpayers should not bear, and neither should the students, Tam. Thanks for sending that in, and that is something we would like to look into as well. Thanks for sending that in. Typical to show snippets of professors' story to make it look bad, some out of context. I personally don't like it at all, but please report on the news and not your snarky opinion. You can find the whole 15-minute speech online on YouTube. We just didn't feel like playing the whole thing here. It pretty much says the same thing over and over.